Something that has fascinated me about the country of Germany is the East-West divide. With the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, East and West Germany began the process of reunification, something which is celebrated every year on the 3rd of October, at least in West Germany. The question that people often ask is the country of Germany still divided? Now, there are many studies detailing how life has improved since the 90s in both East and West Germany. And a study that is often cited is the 2019 Pew Research, which asked Germans to rate their own life satisfaction. And by all traditional statistical measures such as GDP, productivity, and unemployment, things have improved significantly in both East and West Germany, and yet stereotypes of East Germany still prevail. I will be the first to admit that I have a very Western-centric view of East Germany. The narrative that I was fed back in England was essentially one of a liberation from a totalitarian dictatorship. And other than this narrative, you don't really hear very much about East Germany. I had ideas of sort of a subdued people, of very grey buildings and outdated technology. But do these ideas really actually have any truth? Well, I decided to venture into Thüringen, and I was really surprised at what I found. It might look like I'm in the middle of nowhere here in the countryside, but I'm actually in Weimar. This park is absolutely breathtaking. It is so green, and it feels like you're really deep in the East German countryside. If you read economic reports on East Germany, you often get this sense that it's kind of like an empty wasteland because all the young and competent people have left. They've emigrated west with the chance of a better future. And although it is true that you will earn more on average in West Germany and you probably will have more career or life opportunities in the West, this doesn't mean that the East is empty and devoid of economic activity. In fact, it was never like this. From the point of view of a British tourist, Thüringen is anything but grey, empty and desolate. It is unbelievably green, lush and vibrant, the cities as well as the countryside. While visiting Erfurt, Weimar and places like Eisenach and Gotha, I was really struck at how many young people there were on the streets. It might be different in rural places, but even in the smaller towns of Thüringen like Gera and Jena, there were really a lot of young people on the streets. East Germany as a whole is often kind of forgotten by domestic and international tourists. One thing which really surprised me last December when we had our annual work get-together in Berlin was that many colleagues were in Berlin for the first time in their life. And these were German colleagues in their 40s, 50s, some of them even in their 60s, and they had never been to Berlin, the capital of Germany and one of the most popular destinations in Europe to travel to. Berlin is Berlin, and I know that Berlin is not in Thüringen. And before the comments light up with the usual sentences of Berlin is not Germany, there are many other cities in East Germany, and specifically in Thüringen, which is the state that I visited, that are really well worth visiting. Take Weimar and Erfurt, for example. They have retained much of their medieval and classic aesthetic, and even in the city centre of Weimar, many places have been designated as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, either as part of the classical or the Bauhaus complex in Weimar. And in fact, the only reminder of Weimar's more recent darker history that I came across was the Gauforum, designed by Hermann Giesler, and was really designed to be one of many Nazi government buildings in each state capital throughout Germany. So I was in Erfurt yesterday, I'm in Weimar today. And all I can say is that I'm just blown away. Like, I'm shocked at how beautiful and how rich these places are. At least these two cities that I've seen in East Germany so far, I am really pleasantly surprised. It is pretty amazing what they have to offer has had all my preconceived ideas shattered. Similarly, in Erfurt, it is only on the very outskirts of the old historic town that you see some of the old Plattenbauten or the old sort of Soviet-style high-rises. And so, for better or for worse, I did not really get much of a sense of the country's sort of communist past. It doesn't seem anti-capitalist at first glance. In fact, the restaurants, the cafes, the bars, the places of interest were absolutely jam-packed. And I really failed to pick up on any sort of sense of anti-capitalist sentiment. There seems to be this wadi belief that East Germany is still somehow culturally socialist and in many ways a little bit anti-consumerist and anti-capitalist. But I did not see this manifested anywhere in the places that I went to. Rather disappointingly, the high streets were full of the usual chains. The C&As, the H&Ms and the McDonald's were in plentiful supply in all of the cities that I visited. Even some of the smaller towns like Eisenach or Gera, which were a bit more run down, but just for context, I was in Wrexham a month ago in North Wales, and in comparison, these East German cities seem to be doing very well economically. The economic East-West gap has closed considerably since the 90s, but the fact of the matter is that East Germany is still 20 to 25% poorer than the West. According to economic convergence theory, this should have closed after 20 years at the latest, and so because this hasn't happened, there are several theories as to why this economic gap still exists. One of the theories is risk aversion. To have a market economy, you have to take on risk. It is possible that the fundamental economic gap between East and West really is down to the fact that East Germany is just less open and more reluctant to take on risk. This attitude is understandable given East Germany's history. I think it's very difficult to understand what it's like to have a complete takeover of material systems and social values if you haven't actually lived through that and experienced it firsthand. On top of that, people in East Germany didn't have the opportunity to build up financial assets or accumulate real estate, which people in the West did have for many decades and even sort of managed to pass that down over the generations. Having financial assets or having real estate obviously makes it a lot easier to then take on financial risks. It seems that risk aversion and distrust of innovation are strong underlying currents in the former DDR, which were then passed on to the next generation. Entrepreneurship is much less common in East Germany, and even those born after 1980 seem to prefer the comfort zone than personal growth and taking risks. So it might not seem anti-capitalist at first glance, especially not from the lens of a tourist, but it's also evident that East Germany has not fully embraced all aspects of the system. So you might think East Germany is 25% poorer than the West. It sort of has social-leaning ideology. It's a little bit anti-capitalist. It should be a lot cheaper. Well, no, unfortunately not. East Germany, the places that I went to in Thüringen, in Weimar Erfurt, Jena, Gera, food, hotels, petrol, everything is basically the same price as in the West, as in Frankfurt, Düsseldorf, Berlin. I did not see any significant price differences. In fact, the only thing that seemed to be a little bit cheaper was property, if real estate agent sites are anything to go by. My personal experience of Thüringen was that the people were extremely, almost unusually friendly. There seemed to be this sort of small village vibe. I was often greeted on the streets with a hello or a guten Tag. There was even one example where there was a rainbow and this lady was very excited and really wanted to make sure that I had seen it and just started talking to me on the street and talking about how beautiful this rainbow was, which was very unusual for me. This is not something that I associated with Germany up until this point. This sort of thing does not happen in Frankfurt or Düsseldorf or Berlin. But I say that with a large caveat because that is just my personal experience. I have heard the polar opposite from quite a few people, and the data seems to suggest that integration efforts have come up against a lot of challenges in Thüringen. Generally, the local population does not feel safe with the increasing amount of asylum seekers, and foreigners in general are not particularly welcome. So because of this, I would definitely think twice about moving there if you are a foreigner and think about moving to Germany. This is why most people move to the West, because the West is a little more open to foreign influences. I traveled to Thüringen with fixed ideas about the place, many of which were shattered beyond repair. The landscape reminded me of England, wooded hills and great green fields. The half-timbered houses of Erfurt, the pristine old town of Gotha, and the beautiful town squares of Weimar are must-see places. I think East Germany doesn't get the press it deserves, and I underestimated it. That is what I love about travel. It challenges assumed beliefs and forces me to question things. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you found this interesting, let me know why in the comments below. And until next time, I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.